Okay, shape primitives. This is going to look weird on the way, but just trust that it will end up somewhere at the end, and it can be helpful, especially if you are still not terribly comfortable with the shape primitives. I'm going to build, I'm sorry, not comfortable with the pen tool. I'm going to build pretty much the whole fleur-de-lis with a variety of ellipses that are minimally modified. So just keep that in mind, and you can draw them and then reshape them as necessary to fit. And sometimes the minimal modification is kind of like what I'm dealing with here, where I'm going to grab part of it and scoot it around a little bit. But the ellipse is giving me the basic shape that I need for this part of the fleur-de-lis. Okay. I'm only worried about the outside part of it. The inside part I will deal with later. But for now, it's that outside section that I'm worried about. And there's a little, it's not exactly a trick, but it's, I can't figure out how else to refer to it. There's a little bit of a technique that I'm going to make use of here to get me as close as possible to this peaky shape right off the bat, which is going to be to create the ellipse. I've got the convert anchor point tool. I'm going to come to the point on the very top of this elliptical shape, and I'm just going to click on it one time. And what it's going to do is convert what was previously a curve point into a corner point, and it will take it much closer to the shape that I'm after without a whole lot of other modification. The only other thing that I really have to do to get closer is I'm going to grab the pen tool, add a point, drag it down, and to make it better fit the path. I could also have done the same thing by layering another ellipse on the outside, but that's actually harder than what I did do. Okay, so I've got those two pieces. I'm going to do the bottom two sections, and then I'm going to worry about this other part, and I'll tell you what I mean by that in a moment. All right, so ellipse. And ellipse. And this bottom one, I'm going to do in a very similar way to what I did on the top. Meaning I'm going to do the convert anchor point tool on the very bottom point of that ellipse, which takes it into more of a petal or a teardrop shape, which is what I'm looking for. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the original so you can see that this left-hand part is forming roughly the shape of that fleur-de-lis. Two more things will get me there, and I can't easily do that without drawing those now. I'm just going to leave them until later to implement. But I need to draw the cutouts that sort of this petal for part of the fleur-de-lis is forming. So this gets the upper one. I'm going to make this a different color so you can see what I'm getting at here. I'm going to make it blue, and that's forming the upper portion. It's not doing the lower portion, but it is getting the upper. I'm going to turn the fill back off just so it'll disappear a little bit again. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the lower petal. And I'm going to use these shapes to cut away from the form. So part of this will be united, and part of it is going to be minus front or something along those lines to help me get the shape that I'm after. It's a little bit of both. And I'm not sure that this is any faster, certainly, than just drawing the shape, but for people that don't like using the pen tool, it's a good alternative. Okay, so at the moment, what I've got is this. 4 of these, and I will color the ones I'm talking about, are going to be the ones that give me the basic form. So these green ones, I'll turn those back off. And then these 2 guys, which I'm going to make 2 different colors of blue, are going to be used to nibble away portions of that and return that fleur-de-lis shape that I'm looking for. Okay, so now that I have them, I can start to do the uniting. So I'm going to select these top 2 guys. I'm going to color the ones I'm talking about. Select these 2, and you could do this in fewer steps. I'm just trying to do this for demo purposes. I'm going to have the Pathfinder palette open, and I'm going to unite those 2 guys. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the bottom 2. I'm going to turn the top ones off of the green again. Select the bottom 2. I'm going to make those green so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm going to unite them, and that's now doing what I need. Now that that is done, I can move on to the nibbling away part. So the upper portion that I've turned orange and the lower portion that's still green are really close to the shapes that I require. There's just a little bit extra in this section where I've got the 2 extra ellipses. So I'm going to do the orange one first. I'm going to turn this one, the fill back off. And this is the shape that needs to nibble away. This blue shape needs to nibble away from the orange shape. So you can use Shape Builder, you can use Pathfinder, whatever makes sense to you. The only restriction essentially is that what is my blue shape has to be on top of the orange one to make use of the minus front, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to click on minus front, and that part has now been nibbled away, which is exactly what I needed to have happen. And I'll do the similar thing to the bottom section. I'm going to make it, well, let's just go ahead and go with orange since the top part is orange. I'm going to turn the fill off of that one temporarily though. Okay, it helps if you actually just click on the right control. I'm going to make this one blue. Same deal. Blue, it's going to eat away from the orange. Minus front. And I now have the 2 sections. What isn't true of my 2 sections is they're not joined to each other, and that I need to have happen. So I can use the unite so long as they're both selected. But I'm still not quite where I need to be for the fleur-de-lis because I need just a teeny bit more. And I mean, it is literally very little extra that's still needed. But grab another shape, fill in the gap. The fact that it crosses the midline is irrelevant because so does everything else. Unite, and now I have the full half of the fleur-de-lis that I need. It looks crazy at the moment because it's orange and there's this little extra bit here. This extra part will not show. The eagle will cover it up long term. But if it bugs you, you could tweak it. But just sort of see what happens when we turn the fill off and look at that relative to the original. And you've got what you need with one extra step. We need to get rid of the right-hand portion of this. And there's tons of ways that you can do it. But one of those is that minus front that we just used repeatedly. I could select it, minus front, and now the part of it that I didn't want is gone. I can grab what I've got. I can use the reflect. And if you'll recall, if you watched one of the earlier sections, select it, alt-click on that center line, and then press the copy option and you will get both halves. Those are the 2 pieces now of mine. And I need to join them. So if they're actually touching, which they ought to be, unite will get you there. If they're not, you might have to slightly tweak them and move them together and do the join function that I did in an earlier video. I was able to do unite this time because I had created a closed shape with all the other actions that I was doing. But regardless, one way or another, you end up with a closed fleur-de-lis, and once you have that, you can set your stroke weight. So earlier when I was playing around with it, I found that it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 18. Right now it's set to inside and outside, and that doesn't work. So my stroke panel, which I think I've closed, oh, it's there. I'm going to line stroke to center and obviously turn the stroke to red. Okay, helps again if you are in the correct setting. And 18. There we go. All right, so that is the fleur-de-lis part.